All right, guys, so this is not a vlog. This is a little bit of Tour de France banter with Francois and Rob. It's probably not good for kids because there's a little bit of swearing and stuff, but this is our second last night on the road, okay? I mean, they laughed. It's a bit raw, so it's just raw chat, okay? Unedited, okay? This is our second last night on the road, so we've just let the camera roll while we just sit here and talk Chang. So I hope you enjoy this. Normal vlogs will be back again tomorrow.
Yeah, well, earlier that day, Pantani went on the attack as well.
Yeah, that's right.
He'd won on the Ventoux. They had taunting. Pantani took objection. He attacked on the Jus a bit way before, 130 kilometres from the finish, from memory, like a long way out. Ferrari was on the phone. That's the one that you references. Ferrari was on the phone to Johan Brunel in the car, asking how long Pantani could hold it, and they made their assessment and said he could hold it, and they needed to panic. Armstrong panicked, didn't he? Got to the Jus plane. He was with Ulrich, and then Virenque and so was up the road with Heras, with Kelme, Virenque with Polti, and who did I say? Ulrich with Telekom, of course. He was a German champion that year. Armstrong in the yellow jersey, and it's the first time in the era of Armstrong winning when he lost ground on a climb, and he lost over a minute at the top.
That's the only time I can remember. I think that's the only time during his so-called reign that Armstrong faltered in a climb. It's probably the only day. Well, he had his crash once in the Pyrenees, but I mean, he still won the stage. So I mean, his only real bad day in the mountains was Chouplan in 2001. So. And I think he climbed it another time. I think, but it was not on the Tour. It was probably maybe on the Dauphiné. But he always said he hated that climb. So
did he?
Yeah.
And then the epic of 2006 has got many stories behind it.
Yeah.
Where was it where he went? Where Floyd, he had Axel Merckx ahead of him. On Axel's wheel was maybe.
Don't remember 2006. I saw it on TV, but I was not on the Tour, so it didn't stick in my mind.
In 2006.
Yeah, I didn't do the Tour that year. No.
There was maybe Gutierrez started at Axel Merckx. There were 4 Phonax, and then Floyd came through, and on his wheel at the time was Michael Rogers, and they'd done a strong turn, and it was 40 or 60 kilometres into the stage, on maybe the Col de Sassis or something like this. Sassis, how do you say that one?
Yeah, the Sassis. Yeah, we went past it today.
Yeah, and they did a surge, and it was a long way from the finish, and then Floyd just kept going, and the last one to go with him was Rogers, and he said there's no way that he could have held the pace, etc. And then Floyd goes on. Stuart O'Grady was in the break that day. He caught Stuart and then just left him for dead. And then you remember John Lalonde handing the bidons out and him pouring it over his head for God knows how long. And then he went up and over the Juplan down into Morzine. And on the same day, just to reference Morzine and 6-year stints, so 10 years ago.
So when? Keep going. Sorry.
Sebastien Piquet had a baby, and he's usually the person who does the interviews at the end of the stage, because he does radio tour, gets out of the car, does the thing. Instead he got out of the car, went to the train station, went to Paris to be there for the birth of Thea. And I'm good at the moment. And then so I got to do the interview with Floyd after. It was me, I did the international signal. So I was waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs, and I said, man, that takes big balls to do that. And he was like, oh, well, you've got to do something. And it would ultimately be that stage where he went positive for testosterone. And we did the interview. And it was an outrageous day. But at the time that it happened, it was really quite remarkable.
Yeah, it looked like one of the most unbelievable feats in the recent history of the Tour. But it was too good to be true,
Almost like Floyd Landis's thing. What did you think of that?
Well, that was Floyd.
Sorry, right. Because that's right, he rode away from...
Yeah, there was Morzine again. Another thing, that plays maybe in the favor of Colombians, is that Morzine has always been a good finish for Colombians. When Fabio Parra became the first Colombian to finish on the Tour podium, if my memories don't get me wrong, he won the stage in Morzine and moved to second overall at the time. I think he finished third. But so I think Lucho Herrera won in Avoriaz. That's just over Morzine. So it's always been a good place for Colombians. So if the Colombian trend goes on, I think even Botero I think won not on the tour, but I think he won probably the Dauphiné stage in Morzine. So Morzine has always been a good place for Colombians. So maybe tomorrow we could have a stage win for Pantano and Nairo Quintana. I don't know, maybe moving up to second overall or doing something. But beware of the Colombian trend in Morzine.
So, and it was also where Andy Schleck won his first stage up above Morzine, so it's different. There's Morzine Avoriaz, is that right?
Yeah, Avoriaz, yeah.
And Andy won stage 9 or 10 of 2010.
That's right, yeah.
I think he was wearing the white jersey at the time, beat Samuel Sanchez, who was still with the Orange Army from Euskaltel. But that was up, it doesn't matter. But he would ultimately become the winner of the Tour de France as well. So if you look at Morzine that way, it has an impact on the winner.
Always.
I mean, Armstrong ended up winning the one where the title of the tour where he fell to pieces on the Jouplan. But he lost a lot of time. It was a real moment of panic. And an interesting side note, so they got to Morzine, Armstrong held onto the jersey, but he had a crisis and he was losing time fast. Like, I can't remember the detail, but it was minutes. And that night, when they were getting, they'd gone through the processes of analysing the stage, Armstrong called Matt White, or had an agent call an agent, and they started the discussions for Matt White to join the team because he'd wanted a new domestique and he'd heard about Matt White.
Really?
And it was in Morzine that the call was made.
Straight after
the stage that Armstrong had a collapse in.
Really? Why Matt White?
He'd heard about him.
Is he good?
As a rider, as a domestique, that's why they hired him. But now he's a tactician and now he's steering Adam Yates to maybe a podium. Had it not been for the handsling today, or a push by, who did you say, Luke Rowe?
Luke Rowe, yeah.
Then Adam would be 1 second off the podium. I mean, we're not talking about the win, but if you're looking at anticipation, that's still pretty exciting.
That's incredible.
So you might have 2 Brits on the podium.
Yeah, the podium is still very undecided, really, we could come to Paris in the last stage with 3 guys, if it stays like it is, within 15-20 seconds for the podium place. Normally there's a truce, on the last day, but with a podium place at stake for 5 or 10 seconds, do you think the truce would hold? I don't think so. So we might even have an exciting last day for once.
Yeah.
Imagine when Cadell was 23 seconds behind Contador in 2007. Maybe it was 28 actually. I can't remember if Contador sat up a little. He lost, I think he lost a little bit of time. It was the next year when 58 seconds was between Cadell and Carlos Sastre. But anyway, and Sastre had been a minute and 2. Long story. Go back to the closest call in recent times was 23 seconds, where Cadell finished to Contador in 2007. And the plan had been for Silence Lotto, I think it was at the time, they had a dual-pronged approach in 2007. Robbie was still in the team, started in London, they were going to win the green jersey and the yellow jersey. Yeah. So they had a lead-out man for a sprint. I can't remember who it was, maybe Gert Steegmans. No, he was riding with another team then.
He was not with,
He was with Ethics or Quickstep
at the time, yeah.
But anyway, and the plan was for Cadell to try and win time bonus. They'd actually make a break on the last lap. They were going to just go like crazy, and they didn't. But if it is, even if it is not for the win, but for the podium, and they can sprint for bonuses.
Can you imagine Nairo Quintana, Adam Yates, and Romain Bardet sprinting for a bonus in the intermediate sprint, beating Sagan and Cavendish is not there, and Greipel? Well, because sprinters don't have the last intermediate sprint on the way to Paris, the sprinters have no interest in doing that anymore. It's finished. Sagan has won the green jersey almost certainly. So they might decide not to do the sprint, and we could have Yates, Bardet and Quintana sprinting for time. Do they get time bonus?
There's time bonus for the intermediate.
Yeah,
sprint.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding at all.
And that was the scenario going to Maxime Lecole, I think it was, and Pablo Lastras won the stage, and it was a rip-roaring tailwind, and he got the second, or now it's probably the third fastest average speed of a tour stage in history. I think it's still the second. It was 49 something kilometres an hour. He won, and behind there was an intermediate sprint, and I remember the day clearly, and McEwen was still in head-to-head battle with Cook for the green jersey, and there was only a matter of a handful of points in it. I think we left Bordeaux that day, and then aiming north, and Robbie and Cookie were sprinting for points, and suddenly there were two other names, and it was not on the television, I don't think, and they were showing it on the radio. I mean, I could hear it on the radio when I was doing the call. And the other two names, Ulrich and Armstrong. McEwen won, Armstrong got second, Ulrich got third, and they were sprinting for bonuses because the time trial was coming up in Nantes. There was 15 seconds between them at that point, and then it ended up that Ulrich crashed in the time trial and lost his chance. But I think it was 1:01 between them that year.
It'll be very exciting to see Yates, Bardet, and Quintana sprint for. Bardet's not such a bad sprinter, and oddly enough, Quintana can sprint.
Right.
It'll be interesting to watch. Really.
And Yates, he just seems to grind the big gears. I think you'd have to have a kick on him. The way he climbs, have you noticed? He looks too low in the saddle, and it looks like he's always behind the gear.
Yeah, that's right.
He's never on top of the gear.
No.
I've never seen him ride on top of the gear.
No. And at the same time, most of the stages on the mountain stages on this tour, he was always at the back of the yellow jersey bunch. Even today, but today obviously he was in a little bit of a pain. I think he had a bad day. Probably doesn't like the rain too much. So my bet for the podium would be Bardet, Froome, Bardet, Quintana. I don't think Yates. I think Yates is on the way. Quintana is just a little bit resurrected, and
What's the podium as it stands at the moment?
That's the podium. But then Yates. But either way, Yates goes to the podium because he's going to win the white jersey.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So he'll be there anyway.
But he won't be in the top three. I don't think so. You never know. I mean, unless there are crashes, But I mean, it could be a disaster for Froome. It could be a disaster for Bardet. And imagine the day after winning the stage, coming second, he crashes out.
It's a good script. I don't mind this. We've been whinging the last few days of it being a boring tour. But if you put Montpellier together with Ventoux, which was sort of as odd as it was interesting.
Yeah, it was.
That's a highlight, like a standout.
The problem is, my impression is, we get exactly the script Christian Prudhomme wanted. The tour director, when he made this course. He wanted the suspense and the interest of the race to last until the very last stage. The problem is, he was right. The last two stages are going to be the most interesting in this tour, but because the riders knew in advance that this was going to happen, they kind of fucked the rest of the tour, And this is the problem. In previous years, the course was a very heavy, tricky first week, so all the guys were terrified by it. Cobbles and everything, so they held up, and this time the third week was so crucial and looked so terrible that it probably held a little bit, and that's what Bardet was saying today. He was saying that at last we've seen the kind of cycling we like, like attack, instinct, intuition, not looking at SRMs and positions. If I take 10 seconds, then maybe this kind of calculation, which is not what sport should be about. Whichever sport, we don't like sports guys to be conservative. You don't want a tennis player to say, I'm going to lose the second set so that I can get better in the third. Or we want the guys to fight all the time and this, and that's That was the good news about Baldwin. It was probably the first. Well, Sagan did great stuff in this tour, but in the mountains, that it was the first real attack, and it was probably in terms of the GC, it was the best move of the tour.
And it came on a descent, so we've learned that I've been wanting power meters to go from the tour. There was all this debate. I think we raised it in another vlog where you get rid of radio. Race radio, blah blah blah. There was this big kerfuffle about getting rid of the race radio, but that wouldn't impact the race as much. Well, maybe it would.
Well, if you get rid of GPS, power meters, and radio, then you get the guys. The guys should start to learn for themselves how to. In the old days, the guys knew how to conduct a race. I'm going to attack there. I'm going to bluff here. These days, it's not them. It's a computer assisted fucking team director who says, okay, no, hold it now. No, your parameter is too high. And our statistician back in Hong Kong is saying you shouldn't attack now. What the fuck, Let the guys do what, do it on instinct, do it on being a top. It's nothing to do with cycling, but we're not far from the ski slopes, and there's a American skier called Buddy Miller. He's one of the great skiers of all time, and he was saying something that really struck me at the time. He said, "You know what? To be a great skier, what it is to go as close as you can to the limit and never go over it. Otherwise, you crash." And a good skier is a guy who knows exactly how to be just at the limit all the time and never over the limit. And that's what makes a champion. They don't have fucking SRMs on their skis, It goes too fast. They learn to know by their sensations, by their feelings, by the knowledge of the slope, by the knowledge of their skis, when they can go fast and when they must and that makes a difference. Cyclists should be the same. They should be able to know by themselves, I'm good, I'm not good, I'm going to try this and that, without the tools that they have now. I think it would be much better. And it's in a way, I'm not sure it's true, but that's what Romain Bardet said today. He said, I put my earphones away, I didn't look at my power meters. I just went for it, and that's what cycling is about. That's what cycling has been about for 100 years. It would be a pity if all the guys, because one day you have the bikes going by themselves up the slope, and without a rider on them, and the guys, we gradually enter the edge of the e-cycling, You could have statisticians and bike manufacturers and guys with computers, driving these bikes up the L'Alpe d'Huez or Ventoux, Who cares for the riders anymore? Yeah, we've got the figures, we've got the mathematics, we've got the numbers, So yeah, it's nice from time to time to see a human win a race.
So you had automatons, and then now you have a little bit of emotion, and that's what makes a difference. Yeah.
So he took his earpiece out.
Yeah.
Would he got in the shit for that?
So he says, no, he's perfectly entitled to do it.
What do you think of race radios? Let's talk about technology. Let's talk about the technology. Do you think race radios should be banned?
We just covered that pretty well.
Yeah. I think it's basically irrelevant. Yeah, in some races they are banned. And it doesn't make a difference. Which proves that it's probably a waste of time to have them, because if it doesn't make a difference, you could do without. But you know what? You know the reason why this stuff now sticks to the peloton, and they don't want to get rid of it, because these guys pay money for to the team. If your radio system could be Phonak, could be something else. They give a little bit of money to the team. Power meters, same, Garmin, SRM, other brands, they pay to be the official provider. So the the financial interest that we always tend to forget that the financial interest of having all this equipment is enormous. And even bike manufacturers, they want to say, oh look, we've got this great SRM fixed on our pedals or our crank, and look how beautiful it is, and you can see how many hair you've got in your nose, in your nostrils and everything, and guys say, God, that's great, I want this, and that's why it's also a matter of money more than so. They say race radio should be kept for security problems, but remember the old days. I'm not nostalgic about anything, but in the old days they didn't have helmets. They rode with a cap. There was no earpieces, and how many guys died in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 50s, 40s? None.
Really?
They were just old enough. They were just. That's what I was telling you about Buddy Miller. Buddy Miller says, "You go too fast, you crash." And in those days, you went too fast, you crashed. So guys knew that if they went too far, they would crash. Now it's not them who decide. It's my bike, my SRM. You should know when you're going too fast. And from time to time you should take the risk. You say, okay, let's go, we'll see.
Because I told you in the car the other day that when I first met Jörg Jaksch, and I knew that he had the story that was fascinating to tell, and it was and we were doing it in the magazine with Dr. Fuentes and his relationship there, but I didn't want to raise that in my first meeting. I said, I remember Jörg Jaksch, I know the recall I have of your name, and that's because you were away on the day that Balocchi crashed. And
right.
we went to, and the tour went to Gap, and Armstrong went across the field and all of the things that happened. And he said, yes, there I was. And he said, I was told to go for it, and then they would work out what would happen. And is it the Col de Mons or a different one that he came down?
No, it's what's it called? La Roquette? When you're doing down to Gap. Yeah.
Down to Gap. And Jörg was ahead, and Manolo had said to Balocchi, you have to absolutely go crazy on the descent. And Jörg had done some of the descent, or he was approaching it, and he said that the bitumen is very sticky. It's going to be very dangerous if you attack. It's not going to work out. Something bad's going to happen. He forewarned Manolo, and Manolo said, no, you have to do it. And it was the end of Jose Balocchi's career. And Manolo was insisting, you have to attack this descent like your life depends on it. And ultimately, he broke his hip. Armstrong went across, blah, 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 blah. All that happened. Vinokourov won the stage. All sorts of different things happened. And that was the instruction from the team car that damaged it all. Had they been racing on instinct, Balocchi would not have gone over the edge. And Jörg Jaksch probably would have won the stage. And all of it artificial, just like Vinokourov, just like everything.
Because in the 50s, for instance, when there were attacks in descents like that between Antil, Pulido, other guys, the team director in the team would go down, go full gas, and blah, blah. He would shout at the guy, but the guy could say fuck off. He didn't feel obliged by this little equipment to listen to what this team director did. It was a little bit different. There was a whole strategy inside the bunch for guys to go down to the car, take instructions, go back and tell the guys. It was much more it was even more tactical at the time than it is now, because it was not instant. You had to let a guy drop, then go back to the bunch and say, okay, that's what we're going to do. It was different, and in my opinion, it's closer to the spirit of cycling than it is now. Because once again, even if I exaggerate a little bit. One day they have these bikes going, with robots on top of them,
So, what do you think? What do you think of the course? And is there any way? Is it a good course this year?
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that today, because I was nostalgic this morning when we went to Saint-Gervais, and we drove the course, and I seriously remember walking up. So as soon as I got to the press room, I wrote a little story about my recall of the 92 stage, and I just put it online, and I did a warning, sorry, but it's got lots of personal anecdotes. And it was referencing buying film and loading it into the camera and not seeing the photos until September and all sorts of different things. And just to sort of, I remember the sequence well, but I did check a couple of details. So I knew that it was a long stage the day before to Moulas and that Laurent Fignon had won the stage. As I watched it, I know where I was when I watched it, and I was in Luchon, and I'd decided that overnight I would come up overnight from Pyrenees to Alps on the train in '92, and I eventually walked up from the town to near where the finish was today, and Rolf Jahrmann won the stage, Stephen Roach was third, and Pedro Delgado was second, and they were all together when they came past me at whatever 6 kilometres or 2 kilometres ago. Anyway, it was a 245 kilometre stage, and I'd been on the side of the road. I knew nothing about what was going on, and it was still exciting. But if the day before I'd watched Laurent Fignon in the solo attack to Moulas, you would remember it because you were there.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember coming to cycling when Le Mans was battling with battling with Fignon, and that was to me what road cycling was. Fignon had a big part to do with that. So he'd won the stage before, and that inspired me to go, okay, I'm going to go and have a look at this race. And that was the first stage I'd seen. But the Fignon stage win was 254 kilometres long. And it was, I don't know, they were racing without power meters then. They were racing on steel and aluminium bikes. They were using completely different tech. And it's only 24 years ago. Yeah. And the changes that have happened in the time that I've been watching the Tour de France have been immense. And we're sort of lamenting that technology exists, but and it doesn't sort of flow on from what I've just been talking about with going to Saint Gervais, but the longer stages are boring, but they also had the softening blow. I don't know about the route, I'm changing, but I also wanted to say we're complaining about technology, but we also should be praising it because the data from Dimension Data this year has been excellent, I have to say, on screen. The on-bike footage has got the potential to be enormous. I don't think they're managing it properly yet, but the potential exists and it's been accelerated.
But it depends what you do with the data. If data is used by TV, by your organizers to make you understand the race better, that's fine. That's fine. But otherwise, it's like to have an engine on your bike, you know, with all this equipment. After a while, I guess in the old days in Formula One, they have turbo engines, you know, and they decided to hand that because it was dangerous and guys were getting killed. And you could go on, you know, with more technology all the time, but it's like in track and field, in athletics, you could allow, I don't know, you know, sprinters to have strength equipment, or you know, even gear that's aerodynamics. All in other sports that they've banned all that, you know, to make sure that you're as close as possible to the. I don't know if there's anything like natural, you know, how could I say that? Yeah, the natural strengths of the guys, you know, and in cycling, it's in my opinion, it's getting a little bit out of control. There is you know, technology to make people understand better, right? But technology to stop the race taking place on a football pitch or on a rugby pitch, the guy doesn't have an earpiece with a threat coach telling him, "Oh, now kick the ball there. Give a 25% angle to your kick or whatever." They make their own decisions. You know, this is what sport is about. It's also mental. These guys should be be able to make their own tactics, to make their own decisions. They're not kids, you know, run by kind of. No, that's not the way it goes. You know. So in cycling these days, everything these guys do, from time to time, is linked to what the team director says, what they see on their parameter. Can't you think for yourself? Don't you know your body well enough to decide when to attack or hold back? You know, that's for me an important thing. And going back to the course, I mean, we discussed it before, but as I was telling you,
cobbles and
this year, the intention of Christian Prudhomme when he designed the course was to keep the suspense go and the interest of the of the race as long as possible until Paris. As I said, we could have once again bonus sprints for podium places between Bardet, Quintana, and Adam Yates. You could have that, which would be absolutely amazing. But in the same time, because the riders knew from the start in Normandy that the last week would be so crucial. They were all telling it. They were all saying, "Oh, patience is the key word. Let's not get carried away." Even Bardet, who won today, he said yesterday, "Now, it's finished. Patience. We had enough. The waiting game is over. Tomorrow I attack." And he did just that. The problem was that knowing all these guys knew that these two stages could be crucial. So even if they said the opposite, I'm pretty sure they held back a little bit, thinking if we waste too much energy, we're going to pay it in the last couple of days. There was another time, last year we had La Pouduez on the last day, on the penultimate day, but there was another time when they had the Ventoux on the day before the finish, and nothing happened. Garate won the stage. Everybody let him go.
Tony Martin was second.
Yeah, that's it. So when you have so maybe that's a scenario for tomorrow. Maybe they'll call a truce. Maybe they say, "Oh guys, we had guys crashing. We had injuries. We had Tom Dumoulin might not be able to be doing the Olympics. Are we going to be silly again today and probably hamper our end of the season, or do we say?" Okay, that's what the race is. That's where the race stands, and now I'm sure Team Sky will try to control. They won't let the breakaway go. They will go to the top, to the front of the bunch, and impose their pace and say now, stop.
Truth.
No one moves.
Is that what you reckon tomorrow? They're going to control?
They're going to, of course. They don't want the same thing as today happening again. The second crash could be fatal, for Chris. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to try to lock the thing, and every attempt they might let a couple of unknowns go, But even this, I'm not sure about. I'm sure they're at least they will attempt to really, go from the start, impose a reasonable pace and not let anybody budge.
Because it was a fast start today as well.
It was, because everybody wanted to be on a break, The idea was for these guys, Rui Costa, who was with Bardet until the last. He's been away many times. He's a great rider. He really wanted this stage win. He was thinking, well, hopefully the GC riders will, stay behind, do their own thing, and I can go. Didn't work. They probably will try again for to stage a breakaway. But my impression is that Team Sky will really try to control the race and let. To avoid the problems they had today.
So they will go hard from the start.
If you have 9 guys in a line at the front of the bunch riding at 40, 42, 43, 44. Well, there are lots of climbs, so it'll be slower than that, but at a reasonable pace, and saying nobody goes past us. What do you want the guys to do? They can easily say, today's, and that's the best way to make sure everything goes according to plan. The best way to avoid a crash is to impose a steady tempo, not too fast, not too slow, and to go down as a unit in the descent. So I'm sure they're going to try that, but then we've got other teams, we have other plans.
But we saw Astana and Movistar finally do.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really. Astana went crazy today. They did exactly what you're proposing, and didn't really. Aru just put on a dancing display. He didn't really achieve anything other than sort of make a lot of gangly pedaling.
He improved as the tour went by. But once again, even in their preparation, I think lots of guys had tried to make sure they were fitter in the third week, and not too early in the tour. And that's the reason why for a long time we had 2 weeks of not boring. It would be because once again, Cavendish winning 4 stages, Sagan, attacking like he did. It was exciting cycling. It was a great race. But for the GC, I don't know. I guess they really should change something. And you know what? I'm in many ways. I hate to say that. I mean, in many ways, I'm not old school, but I think there are traditions that were good about it, and I really think time trials have been. My impression is that Christian Prudhomme doesn't like time trials too much, and since Bradley Wiggins' victory in 2012, really the importance of time trials in the tour, in the outcome of the tour, has gone down considerably. But the problem is it favors climbers. So maybe they do it to favor French riders because they think Bardet, Pinot, Barguil, Roland climb reasonably well. Maybe they do it to favor Quintana because it would be nice for the international image of the tour to have a Colombian win it. But the fact is that time trials have lost their importance. But either way, you know, Chris Froome is the best, well, one of the best time trialists and also one of the best climbers. But I really think that if you had a 50k time trial in the middle of the race, like even at the end of the first week, like was the case in the old days,
in Luxembourg in '92,
it would change. It would change things a little bit, and it would make the race. It would mean that after a full week of racing, you know who the top 6 or 7 contenders are, and the fight will start from there. In this case, we didn't know. I mean, you know, Chris Froome, like he did last year, he was in charge early on. But you know, if you had a 50k time trial early on, you would have had Tom Dumoulin, Richie Porte, all in contention, and it would probably have made for a more exciting race. And you would have had the climbers way down, trying to attack even more in the mountains because they had lost 4 minutes, you know. So I'm not sure it was such a good idea to have hindered the importance of.
I think also the wind of the Ardèche is very important because had the Ardèche time trial been a standard day, where it wasn't the wind that it was, and Ventoux was abbreviated, let's be clear, because of the wind.
Yeah, that's right.
So 2 days in a row were really
right.
hampered. 3 days in a row, the wind had a massive effect.
That's right.
So even when you're talking about that period, I mean, we knew the Ventoux was going to be a big stanza, but the Montpellier stage was equally as enthralling.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And it was fantastic on so many levels. And then you come to the other side of the Ventoux, where the Ardèche promised to be big, and it was big, but with the wind, it altered the dynamic of the race entirely. Had it not been for the wind, I'm sure, I'm not just sticking up for Richie because he's a Tasmanian, but he would have had a bigger impact, much bigger. And Christian says it when he's designing the route. When we read the tour guide and he's explaining his intention, he's saying in La Manche, the wind has the potential to make a mess of things. You know, he drafts the course.
So in a way, we could sum up this whole tour by saying the winner is the weather.
Yeah. Yes, because today my headline was action at the tour, just add water.
Yeah.
You know, like look at what happened. As soon as I got woken this morning by thunder, and I tweeted,
This is the best part of the whole discussion. This is true. You've nailed it in one. The weather has been the major factor in this tour. What do you think
the
about
cold of La
Cobbles?
Manche, the warmth of Andorra, and then the hail in Andorra,
and the heat.
Then the
well,
heat,
they complain about the
then
heat.
the wind, and then again today the rain. That's what's changed the dynamic, and you can't control the weather with a power meter.
No, that's right. That's right. That's why once again the race became exciting today, because in the rain, in such conditions, forget the fucking technology. It doesn't exist anymore. The best guy. You know, you're on the bike, everybody's struggling, and then all the technology you must have, you just must be a good bike rider, you know.
It becomes sort of, it's like boxing without gloves, you know.
That's
like
right, yeah. That's right,
It's
absolutely.
a bare knuckle, total smash.
So are you saying they should spend more time in the Ardèche where it's windier?
No, but that was coincidence. We've been to the Ardèche before, and it's as still as can be. It's very rare that the Mistral even reaches that far.
I'd never seen in my life, entire life, and I lived in this area most of my life, so much wind in such a long period of time. You know, the Mistral, that's the name of the wind. I've lived all my life with that fucking wind, you know. They say it's a wind that makes you crazy, you know, because it's. But in July, for what 5 days in a row, this wind blowing and blowing and blowing at gale force. I'd never seen that before. They were lucky or unlucky, you know. But it would have been a completely different race without Mistral, and it would have been a completely different race without the storms today. And it would have been a completely different race without the hailstorm on the first real mountain stage, and there you are. And it probably would have been different with a little bit less heat. Can you imagine for the bodies of the rider who are fit and all the changes of temperature, humidity, everything? It's been a major factor for sure.
That's a good point. And Quintana complains of the pull.
Yeah.
And the difference for me as a person in a car between the Pyrenees and the Alps was immense. I could feel it in my head. That was obvious. I mean, we went to Switzerland as well, and the climate is entirely different. The weather had a huge impact, and the weather is the one thing that they don't seem to play a contingency for. Oh, you can't. I mean, it's much easier now. They're still sticking newspapers up their jerseys, mind. They still are.
Let's start working on the weather meter, that you can put on the bike, and get a great weather forecast, and then change your nutrition accordingly, and then maybe bikes that adapt to the tire pressure changing automatically, and that sort of thing.
So you can get Brailsford onto this, and it'll be a new catchphrase. It'll be called meteorological meter. Instead of marginal gains, it's meteorological. Say it for me.
Meteorological gains.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's
all right. What else controversial should we talk about? What about Quintana? His lack of gusto. What do we?
They should have ridden for Valverde. Let's paraphrase it that way. But I mean, Valverde he was full throttle again today. If they'd ridden for Valverde, they would have had a better return. He's still on third overall.
Yeah, that's it. His lack of gusto might well put him in second place in Paris, because once again is just on the heels of Bardet. So yeah, maybe it's even more frustrating that with a little bit more of gusto, he might win the Tour. We thought he would this year, but. Can we believe his excuses that he suffered from allergies or not? Or
Chris Froome was on his knees last year at Alpe d'Huez. You could hear him every day getting sicker. You knew it. He was trying to hide it, but it was obvious. And I went to the video conference every day of the last week, and every day the cough got worse. And you knew he was getting sicker. And he was saying that he wasn't telling people so that Quintana didn't find out. Quintana's coming out saying he's got allergies. I don't know if he's aiming for a TUE or what. But the point being that the climate has had an impact, and if Naro's going to blame that, well then Chris can blame it last year, and that's why Naro got so close at Alpe d'Huez, because he was suffering. And it's all different now. Like, had Richie not had the puncture, then the way that things would have played out would have been interesting. I think TJ Van Garderen was like 85th today. He was supposed to be this co-leader. How that's just sort of vanished from
TJ Van
Garderen
it's even not a contentious issue anymore. This guy is finished. His career is over. Last year, he exploded without any explanation at all. A sudden sickness nobody could ever explain, and look at him in the climbs this year. He was absolutely, I don't know. He was the first. It was disgraceful. He was dropped before the sprinters. It was, what the fuck is going on with this guy? It's really, well, in a way, painful. It would really be painful if TJ was a nice, pleasant guy to be around, but in the same time he's not that great. He's you'd like to commiserate, but in the same time, he's been oversold. No, he's not.
She's a way better bloke.
Of course, yeah, of course. I mean, there's no comparison with the two. Richie's, was excellent on the climb. Well, for the last 2 days, you could feel yesterday in the time trial on his best form. He should have been closer to at least Dumoulin. And today, he looked good, and in the very last K, he faltered too. So I mean, it's a strange show. It's very difficult. Maybe the good indication about all this, is that these guys are more vulnerable than they used to be, and maybe that's a good sign that whatever they take is less efficient than in the past, and hopefully that's the case, Hopefully there's fewer engines in the bikes, there's less drugs in the bodies, and we're heading for exciting tours in the future with all these guys. I must say, I'm really, 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 really sorry for Tom Dumoulin. Such a great rider. He should have destroyed the opposition, including Chris Froome in Rio. Now, 20 days away, he's got a wrist fracture. Can he recover on time? I mean,
I would love to now document his home trainer sessions, because he's going to tear that thing to pieces. Because
he might do it Dumoulin Heyman.
Exactly. If this year had the same course as 2012, Dumoulin would have been the champion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Would have been the winner of the Tour de France. If he had the same course and remember when Wiggins had it. So he was under attack by Nibali. And one day that Nibali could have seized the opportunity, someone threw tacks all over the road, and that stage was neutralised.
That's right.
And
you mean?
So was that Murdoch at the top of the pass? and then remember, Cadell punctured, and Jim Ockwitz jumped out, and he was doing this. It was slapstick, and somehow. If you look at slapstick incidents in the Tour in recent years, somehow that one hasn't been played on a GIF, and it should be, because it was ridiculous. And you think about the running down the front.
Explain what happened to the people that don't know.
I can't remember the name of the climb, but it was one in the Pyrenees. Pyrenees? Yeah, going just before.
Yeah, probably.
It was probably stage 18 or 19, and there was a descending finish. I think Luis Leon Sanchez was away, as he often was in those days. And anyway, there was sort of the potential for a Nibali attack, typical, Sicilian style. And then Cadell was the first to puncture, but everyone punctured.
Yeah, there were nails, guys, just spread nails all over the place on the route, and so there were 20,
30, 40 punctures, including a TV motor, crashed, and
everybody punctured, and Cadell punctured at the very top of the hill, and there goes Jim Okovic opening so they're on the edge of the descent at just at the top of the climb. He opens the door of the car, rushes out of it, and tries to give him a bike, put him on the new bike and push him, and he fell in the ditch, more or less. You pushed him, and it was an absolute lack of coordination, and it didn't look professional at all. It looked like Laurel and Hardy ride the Tour de France.
Yeah, it was classic. It was so funny. If it wasn't people getting hurt at the same time, it would be just they would. But that was that whole opportunity gone. But that comes from saying that Dumoulin would have won the Tour if it was a similar course. So the course obviously has a huge impact. But even through the Indurain rain, it's entirely different, because Jean-Marie wasn't as I would say artistic as Christian.
No, that's right. That's right.
If you look at the courses of Christian Prudhomme's reign, and this will round out his 10th year. So he was an apprentice in 2006, where he shared with Jean-Marie, and he took reign in 2007. And 2007 was a remarkable race for many forgettable reasons, like the Orbis coup by Matt Rasmussen, which was redundant, but which won Contador, which all sorts of things, the dynamic change. So that was the Queen stage, the Orbisque. 2008. was the Alpe d'Huez and then a long time trial in Saint-Armand-Montrond, and Cadel just faltered, and Cadel should have won the Tour.
I also think that Christian Prudhomme, for many reasons, has had to change his approach to designing the Tour de France course, and one is that there are two main reasons for me. Keep the excitement going for TV, because he comes from TV. He was a TV, he was the guy commenting the Tour for France Télévisions. So they need the excitement to keep the audience going and the advertising coming in, and the money. But also they need to show great spots. There are far more great spots than in the past. You had finishes in the time in cities, in suburbs. I mean, I remember sprints in the suburbs of Le Mans or places. I have nothing against Le Mans or other towns like this, but now it's always, well, you're very lucky, Mark, to be on the tour and to doing a vlog in this era of the tour, because there's always something to see. There's always nice setting. There's always great Mont Saint-Michel. The mountains are beautiful. There's always something to see. In the old days, you could have flat terrain for 3 days, no church or castle in view. It was, so it changed that for that reason. And the third reason is that the opposition from the other Grand Tours, the Giro d'Italia, for the past 10 years, there's been a kind of competition in the sometimes to the point of absurdity, to have more climbs, more difficult climbs, more percentage, right, we found a 30% slope, great, but the cars can't go up, but the riders will have to, and then in a way, Christian Prudhomme was forced to put a little bit of cobbles, a little bit of steep hill, because the Giro was becoming so hard, and so grueling that the Tour had to keep up to and the Vuelta did the same. In the Vuelta, there's no sprint. It's all uphill finishes, and every time you get to the mountain top, there's always a fortress in the background. They've really there's that sort of competition between the three Grand Tours that probably had an influence on the way the course is designed now. I hope it's not going to be such competition that it gets ridiculous and it has.
Well, so long as they take the Grand Départ back to Corsica, then I'm happy. We can do all of that again. I would do a speed.
That was your finest Grand Départ?
Oh, it was, totally. Well, the Yorkshire in scale.
Yeah,
Yorkshire in scale was London was amazing. Rotterdam was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Luxembourg was even interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Dunkirk 2001 was not a highlight of my life. But for me, even Prix de Fou in '99, I couldn't tell you all of the Grand Départs, but London was spectacular for the fact that they closed down the major capital in Europe. It's immense. It's immense. They passed the Tour de France air traffic law because they couldn't, so they could have airplanes fly over the city to broadcast the signal to the world. And it's an act of parliament. It's the Tour de France airspace law or something. It's known that way. So that's amazing on an organisational front, and it was spectacular how it was miserable weather and it became sunny and it was brilliant on the day of the prologue when Cancellara won. But for the best Grand Départ, you can't go past Porto Vecchio. It was because it was beautiful and it was intimate, and it was the 100th edition of the
2013,
and everything was stacked up for it to be amazing. But the team presentation was amazingly low key, and it was completely tranquil and calm and rested, and it was like we were in Fiji. It was great
because Corsica is so special. The first time I go to Corsica very often, but every time you go to Corsica, it takes only a couple of hours to get into the Corsican pace, and the Corsican pace is not fast. Like they tell you, why the hell are you going crazy? Take your time. Corsicans, we've been there forever. Don't worry. Don't. They have a reputation in France of being lazy Corsicans, but that's not the case. They just take their time, and so time flies. Time doesn't fly in Corsica. It stands there. You have plenty of time, and so that's why this island is untouched. It's absolutely. I've been around in my life, and I I really believe that Corsica is called the Isle of Beauty, and it's really, for me, the most beautiful spot in the world. It's so varied. You've got the mountains. You can. I said it before, but when you're on Corsica, in a mountaintop, you can go within 20 minutes by car from Switzerland to Tahiti. On the same island. It's absolutely incredible. This place. Yeah.
And the tour was fitting.
Yeah, and the tour was fitting. Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
it exposed it. And so Christian, again, for me, I love his courses.
That's true.
And I could talk you through the highlights of each of them because I remember talking about them intimately. And you even had an influence on one of the climbs last year. That was a new climb that we reconnoitred in 2014 in the Pyrenees. So and Christian asked for advice and we drove it and we said the back end's very good. That was fun.
All right, boys.
We could talk all night.
Well, I'm really glad I could have a lot of input into that. But I hope you enjoyed that. That wasn't a vlog, but we'll carry on with the normal vlogs tomorrow. See you then.